Welcome back to Tech at Work on CNBC Africa. If you would like to contact us or have any suggestions for the show, simply send us a mail to tech@cnbcafrica.com. Telkom recently launched a green data center. The worldwide energy consumption of data centers has doubled between 2000 and 2006. In the construction of Belleville 2, Telkom put this figure into perspective and have reduced the energy consumption of their new center. For our Cyber Cafe segment, we take a look at how important it was for Telkom to go green. Hrusostomos Vicatos, welcome to Tech at Work. You're from Telkom and CyberNest. Thank you very much for joining us on the show in Cyber Cafe for this week. We're going to be looking at data centers, the evolution of data centers, the future of data centers, and obviously going green. But I think let's start right at the beginning. CyberNest, tell us a little bit more about that. What do you guys do, essentially?
Well, let's just take you back in history. About 2 years ago, Telkom was looking at entering into the ICT space. As part of that venture, we looked abroad, looked at potential acquisition abroad too, did a bit of investigation, decided against that, turned our eyes towards home, took a look at some of the companies out there, and made an offer on BCX. The intention then was to enter into the ICT services space from a data center hosting perspective, as well as then outsourced IT from desktop, LAN support, etc., etc. And we all know what happened there. Competition Commission did not like the potential acquisition and what it might mean to the market. As a result of that, Telkom then had to regroup. We took a look at what we had internal, we took a look at our internal capability, skills, and made a decision to actually venture into the market ourselves. As part of the investigation over the last 2 years, we've been busy working on the various strategies, looking at different options in terms of how we can actually take our capability to market. As a result of those investigations, we decided to enter the market as a different brand, and hence we've launched CyberNest. CyberNest has basically taken skill sets that we had within the company in terms of supporting the company from an IT perspective for the last 15 odd years, given it focus, given it a different brand, given it backing, and pushed it out into the market and said, there you go, separate business unit to actually focus on these various IT offerings, provide that capability, expose it to the market, and take it forward. It's part of a larger strategy, obviously. There's 3 pillars that form the part of that strategy: Telkom South Africa, Telkom Africa, and then there's the data center operations, which is now known as CyberNest. And that's what we've taken to market.
Chris, if we just look at data centers, we come back to the topic at hand. International demand for data centers seems to exceed supply. Is that true in South Africa?
I think in South Africa, we are heading that way. I think that if you look at what's happened in the market in the last few years, we've had various players entering into this space. So we've seen how Neotel's bought their facility. Vodacom has done very similar. Terraco have now launched their too. Their second one is up and running since January now in Johannesburg. So if you look at that from that perspective, there is definitely a perception that there's an opportunity in South Africa to provide services. Another very key thing is South Africa is a hub for Africa for many different parts of for various different services and offerings, whether it be trade, whether it be telecommunications, whether it be even skills and training. So you're finding that you've got a local market that's got a demand for ICT services. Specifically from a data center perspective, they're looking for reliable hosting. They're looking to stick the IT kit in an environment that's secure, where the power is reliable, where there's fire protection systems, there's personnel on site, skilled, sufficiently capable 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to provide support to these services. But the same is being seen, there's a demand also in Africa. And some of those services we can service out of, or some of that demand we can service out of South Africa. But there's definitely a demand in Africa also, as well as South Africa, the rest of Africa, for data center services.
Yeah. If we look at Telkom's new data center, Belleville 2 in Cape Town, that was recently launched, tell us a little bit more about the design and the capacity and how Belleville 2 is an example of going green and the way forward for data centers, whether it's cooling down energy consumption and reducing all the costs, essentially.
Belleville 2 was quite an interesting exercise. It was about a year and a half of planning for that. Various different technologies, various different techniques in terms of building facilities were investigated. There was looking abroad to see what's being done there. So it was built with a view to meet the demand for the next 5 to 10 years at least, be able to scale up and grow into that demand. There's a lot of modularity that's been built into Bellville too, with that kind of thinking to cater for that demand. There's certain components that obviously you can't just pull out and chuck and replace. So for example, the loading on the walls, or the loading on the floors is a very high loading factor that's been catered for there. So if you look at the design and the thinking, there is some forward thinking in terms of catering for growth and capacity that's gone into the design there. Albeit it's not the only facility that we might be looking at building into going forward. Having said that, from a greening perspective, there's a number of different things we've also looked at there incorporating. We've had a history of providing IT services for the last 15 or so years. We've got 2 facilities that we had built in the Gauteng environment just around the 1999-2000 year mark. And they were obviously built with a certain type of design principle in mind. There was certain thinking that went behind how we filled that facility out. And we've learned from that. We've looked at what's happened around the world. We've looked at our own past, and we've learned from that. So there's certain principles we put into place around Bellville to support greening, to support capacity growth. So, for example, we've introduced free cooling. Free cooling is a technique whereby you, rather than cycle out your air within the facility and recool and put energy into that, when the air outside the facility reaches a certain temperature, you'd rather pull that air in and then just condition that, then pump it through the facility, cool down your equipment rather than recondition the air that's now heated up. That provides you with a significant savings in terms of power. The other thing that we've looked at is from the beginning, from the onset, is putting in standardized hot aisle, cold aisle design architecture in place. So that when you roll out your equipment, you roll it into design requirement where your hot area is vented out the one aisle, cold area is blown up the other aisles. And that has a further cooling potential savings of about 25%, just that alignment. When you go into higher densities, these racks that we put down there, they allow us to put ceilings over, put doors on the edge, so we can then contain the hot air or the cold air. And that introduces further savings. There's various things we've looked at there. From a design perspective, we've also looked at incorporating an architecture from a network perspective that will allow us to virtualize a lot more than our current network architectures and some of our existing facilities. In our existing facilities, we will roll out that design over time, but from Bellville 2's perspective, from the day one, it's designed to support that. So we've incorporated what they call the Cisco Data Center 3 architecture. That provides you with various benefits in terms of greening. That allows you to virtualize better. It's got better support for your VMware capability, extending that from a server virtualization into your server infrastructure. What that also allows you to do is to consolidate on your cabling infrastructure. Typically in your traditional data centers, you have a network for your Ethernet and you have a separate network for your storage. What the Data Center 3.0 architecture allows you to do is to combine that into one common networking infrastructure, so you reduce your cabling, you reduce your footprint. So there's various thinkings that have gone into the design around that. From a cooling perspective, it's very modular. So for example, if you sit with a large single cooling supply, you run that permanently the whole day. If you've got a modular system, you only run the modules that you need to be active for that point in time. And you'd grow that and scale that up as your load in the facility increases or as your temperature, outside temperature increases. So there's a lot of thinking that's gone into the design to make it green.
We're running out of time, Chris, so I'm going to have to cut you short there, but it seems as though data centers are increasing in supply and they are increasing in green initiatives and energy efficiency. So unfortunately, we have run out of time, but thanks a lot for joining us in the Cyber Cafe this week.
Pleasure.